You guys are hilarious because I was thinking the same thing. All right, welcome, creatives, community, and kind folks to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, as well as all of you who are able to take part in the show when it goes live. Thank you very much for being here. And I'm glad I found these articles. We're still continuing talking about game design, or rather setting design. And one really fun one I thought we would end this with, and of course we can. This is Future Friday, so we can maybe talk about this in a modern setting or far future. But the idea of using a theme park as a template for creating our setting, and I think I remember hearing about this on a podcast video. I remember Runehammer talking about theme parks, and you guys talking about like the $12 churros and $8 beers and stuff. It exactly had me thinking about that. But the the ironic thing is there's a lot more good to this than a little bit. So for those who don't know, there are actual articles talking about creating a campaign and a setting and using this idea park. You remember, if you remember the back in the day, the old map snatch up when you go into your theme park. Of course, all the food's expensive. Sometimes the bathrooms are hella dirty. We've got like running kids and people vomiting and uh, extremely long lines. And here, especially in the States, it's usually extremely hot and you're waiting a long time. It's crazy, the parking and all that kind of stuff. But once you get into the place, if your mind relaxes, you know that theme parks have a are designed like casinos. They have a flow to them. They want you to engage in the theme park in a particular kind of manner. And depending on how they're laid out, especially if they're laid out expertly, much like the Disney World in Central Florida, it almost takes you on a ride, you using all of your senses from the moment you walk in and going on. And here, of course, above, we've got a large number of maps here, just theme park. I just typed in theme park maps, Googleized it, and you could see so many of these things here. Even theme parks using the United States itself as various places you can visit, and visit the various parks in it and use it as that manner. But there's a um, despite all of the different theme parks, including like from video games and in books, there is a commonality to them. There are pathways. You could take a look at the theme park map, and they always have the little icons for food services, for the restrooms that everybody needs to hurry up and try to find. The very expensive of like food services and such, usually having a centralized place to do that. But they also have all of the pathways that lead um, to all of the entertainment and the immersive nature of the theme park, whether they are roller coasters or tower rides or castles or um, horror mirror rooms or things of that nature. Often they also have a midway where they're being able to spend money on games of chance, find food services all clumped together. And of course, you have to buy t-shirts and things of that nature. And very much, a lot of this stuff very much fits into, strangely enough, the tabletop role-playing game um, design philosophy, right? I mean, we want our players to enter into our world, and when they enter into our setting, we want to introduce them. We want to cultivate their experience so that they are immersed in our world, no matter what that world is like. So we want them to hear and feel and smell. Whether, for example, let's say it's a dark fey type of setting, we want the edges of the world to be indistinct, and we want there to be this sense of wonder, but also maybe deception and illusion, and we want our players to be entranced by it and want to poke and prod this fey world. But they also we also want them to understand that, with the dark fae, there might be lots of deception and illusion and play on their desires. Whereas maybe we want them to know that all of your resources are very rare. The water, food, shelter is difficult to get, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of like the entrance to the amusement park. And then when we get into the amusement park, we also have within amusement park, there's also thematic regions in amusement park. So we may have roller coasters in one area, and then the aquatic water slides, and that might be in another region. And then we have like the kiddie portion of region for younger folks and whatnot. And then we may have um, uh, I'll say enhancement or enrichment region. Enrichment meaning like there might be museums, there might be people who talk, there may be a self-guided tour, maybe something historic, or there may be interactions with maybe animals and or actors and actresses, low impact kind of region. And then we also there may be something to basically sit down and watch, like theater or with actors or movies and music and things of that nature. And all of that in a strange way is like it's like a sandbox railroad in some ways. So the sandbox is you can go anywhere in the amusement park you want, but you're kind of being guided the way it's designed to get on the ride. And when you get on the ride, you don't get off the ride. So it's the idea of like players, hey, if you want to get on the water slide and you want to go into the aquatic realm of my world, which has like island archipelagos or a deep sea culture, or maybe it's just a coastal region of piracy or something like that. When you get there, you're not leaving that area, right? We're making the agreement that once you go in, you've got the ticket, you go inside, you've agreed to go to this region, stay in that region, um, sandbox, explore that region as it is, but you're not throwing hand grenades and running out. You're not getting in the starship, and beating feet to leave once the thing happens. So I like this idea of the amusement park as theme. So let's get to what you guys have to say. Yeah, $8 beer, $12 churros and $8 beers. Oh man, yeah, yeah. Best ride the major cyclone before eating. Yeah. Oh shit, roller coasters are. Oh man. Oh. Mm-mm-mm. There we go. Okay, now you're up there. Yeah, roller coaster cars are all mimics. There is no exit line. It's all entry. Where is anybody getting off this ride? Nope. Yeah, well, Deadman says accepting your Wisconsin during winter. It ain't hot then. Yeah, that I forgot. Like, yes, up north now. Me being in Ohio, we have um 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 Cedar Point, and s- this is a sorry, this is an aside. This is a very strange thing we have here in the states. Like up north, our northern states have some pretty huge amusement areas that are socked with a pretty heavy winter. It's really weird, but once the winter season goes, people just flock to these areas in the millions. So it's crazy. So yes, that is true. Wisconsin has a huge region. I can't remember off the top of my name there, dead man, but you are right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. The N King says, I think most modern settings would probably take the theme park format. Anywhere you go in Gotham City, there's something crazy happening. Yeah, and oftentimes we like let's use your Gotham City example. Um, there, how to explain this in the comic books, and especially in using that as a modern setting in format. Sometimes there's a path to a place that none of us knew existed before until the writer comes in, right? In the comic books. And the writer goes, oh, yeah, by the way, pulling this out my ass, um, there's a group of Morlock like gang members and they live in a trash heap. And it's all where all the waste and trash and car wrecks and stuff. It's just where they live. And years, never seen this before, but apparently if you follow this little path, all of a sudden now it exists, right? And sometimes when we go to these amusement parks, you follow a little path and you go, "Oh, that's where the restrooms are at," or "Oh, I didn't realize they had a special place where you can take pictures with the theme park fuzzy people or whatever," right? And the same thing when it goes to our setting. Sometimes we want to include a valley or a cave or a monument or a crypt or something. And just because we never detailed it before doesn't mean it's not there. It's, by the way, if you go down the left path, you're going to find this new thing. And, the living world of Greyhawk, there's always something new out there. And we go, oh, yeah, oh, wow. You know, yeah, Wayne says old school. Yeah, the old school Mega Dungeon is a theme park adventure. Each area a different ride. Nonsensical beasts next to each other, disjointed. Yeah, but that's a thing, right? And remember there was always the excuse of the mage created it. So there's a reason why you have a room with a succubus in it, and then another room with 15 goblins, and yet a room next to that with I don't know, harpies in it. And you're like, why do they ever talk to each other? Do they ever bother opening the door? Like, well, things like that. I mean, since Wisconsin is across a bridge to me, yeah, I could walk outside and see it from the front door. Oh, wow. We broke the snowfall record this year. I think you're thinking of Wisconsin Dells. I am thinking of Wisconsin Dells. Thank you so much. Yes, it's the Wisconsin Dells. And in Philadelphia, they used to have uh, the Dells, but not the same thing. They were theaters in the park, basically. Robin Hood Dell, East Park Dell. I can't remember. Anyway, it was just have. It was like a $5, $10 admission, and you brought yourself chairs or lawn blankets and some stuff, and you sat in the Dell, um, uh, like with the theater down below you. It was pretty cool. But yes, the Wisconsin Dells is exactly what I'm talking about, and the theme park. I mean, it sounds funny to make a design your campaign and your setting like a theme park, but in many ways, like the concept of the tavern, I've brought this up before. The tavern and the campsite are both microcosms of your world. So imagine you park your car, which is when you park your car before you go get on the tram, or the small bus or whatever that takes you to the entrance. The parking the car is taking our real world impressions, our cynicism, our critical eye, and we're leaving it in the parking lot. And what we want to do is we've paid a lot of money to get here, time, effort. Um, we've made our characters, we've gotten together, we've arranged our schedules to have 2 to 4 hours to be with these other people, is to put all that aside. And then we get into the front gates. And even before we get in the front gates, sometimes we see characters dressed up, we hear music, we smell the food. And the entrance to the amusement park is our way of shedding our modern philosophy and going into this fantastical philosophy, no matter what it is, modern day, science fiction, fantasy, doesn't matter. And then when we go inside, it's the main entrances often try to give us a microcosm of what we're going to experience. We want to have ourselves this idea that there's a lot of things to experience, and then we get to choose what they are. And the classic, the argument against taverns I get is that it's a common trope, but I would contend that, and it doesn't need to be a tavern, but a locus of a social nexus is a microcosm of your world, in the sense of when you go to the tavern or the inn or the tea house or the bathhouse or the library or the city park or whatever you make as your locus of social confluence. That's where you can get across, like, oh, to the north is, and you people are bragging or talking or rumors are spreading, and to the east is something, and then someone comes to give you food or your drink or whatever, and when they come over are and how dangerous it is. No, no, no streaming issues. Sorry, I'm getting a red light here. So invitations or anything. The entrance to your theme park should be a a way of looking at your world so your players get an idea of what to expect, especially, and it's not giving away the secrets. It's more like, let's go with Star Wars, right? Hey, the inner planets are ruled by the Empire. You don't want to go there. It's dangerous because the I don't know, the trade lanes are dangerous and there's like pirates or something, right? And then other things are like, oh, you don't want to go to the inner planets because it's highly militarized and policed. They're going to scan you no matter what. You can't go there without absolutely rock solid documentation, or they're going to arrest you and confiscate your stuff. Trying to be a smuggler, the best way is to go on the outer part, and then when the rumors, and then there's might even be accoutrement. There might even be props around that describe what the world is like. Hey, this tavern is built inside the destroyed shell of a intergalactic ship, or a these nautical people literally built their town out of the bits and pieces of their sailing craft when they came to this new world. And so in the rafters, it's literally curved because they took their ships and turned them upside down and used them as shelter. And you look around and go, oh, wow, that's kind of different. That's kind of cool. And maybe there's city guards that walk around with pole arms that look like oars, and it gives you an idea. It's a way to describe your world, and all that detail that you put into your world, that's where's the entrance. And we haven't even talked about going into the other part. So let's get back to you guys, but what you guys have to say. But the entryway is like players clues as to what this world is about, and giving enough clues to get them to question it, right? So don't give them all the answers, give them lots of little details. When they see city guards walking around with short capes that look like nets, and they're carrying pole arms that look like oars, the players may assume, like, what is this? Are these ocean going people? What's this about, right? The Ant King says, funnily enough, the Morlock trash gang suddenly existing, that's not always a plot hole. There's all kinds of stuff happening in your city that you've never seen. Exactly. And I think sometimes people over canon stuff, Ant King. And what I mean by over canoning is like um, because we are given information, sometimes people latch onto the information given, that there can't be any more information later on. A perfect example would be Star Wars and Force users. Some people feel like, well, there are no Force users except Jedi and Sith, right? And force ability is a bloodline thing. And I'm going, well, no, because they actually literally, children are recruited and then trained. We happen to follow a character that has a bloodline, but that's not a normal thing. Bloodline has nothing. It's not the norm, it's the exception. Yet you and they also recruit people who are displaying force sensitivity, which means that they have force abilities before they've ever been recruited into Jedi or Sith. But sometimes we get over canon. There can't be the Morlock trash gang. We've never seen it before. It's like, so right. We have that today in fantasy from Dungeons and Dragons. They mention that the the Drow elves that live in Menzoberranzan, I think is how R.A. Salvatore pronounces it. Anyway, they were saying, well, they're not the only Drow elves. They're not all evil. And some people had a problem with that. And I'm going, just because there's a society of evil Drow elves doesn't mean they're all that way. Maybe you only seen this one nation, right? And that happens a lot in the canon in our heads, that we go, we take the canon and then make it concrete. Where unfortunately not thinking about the creators, when then in creators, it's always been fluid. I'm looking at you, Mace Window, with a purple lightsaber, right? The Ant King says, "Oh my God! Now I want to see a funhouse dungeon reimagined as a modern office building that different monster groups are renting out. Warlocks in room 20A, 20B is gelatinous cube room." Well, you know what? That's not actually that far away, right? A wizard would love to have, like, it doesn't have to be extra dimensional, but yeah, Wizard would love to have, hey guys, I know adventurers are beating your ass. I've got a great safe place for you to rent some space out. And the creatures are like, woo, thanks a lot, man. The rent's real cheap here. I love it. Getting together in the in the office break room, eating bagels and stealing people's food out the fridge. Wayne says, if you created a realistic quasi medieval setting, most what we call towns wouldn't have a tavern or an inn. Correct, right? Like in reality, it exists, but TTRPG fantasy has always ignored that part of it, right? I remember having a dispute with someone, and they were just like, and I mentioned something about fantasy investigators. They were like, "Well, in real medieval world, there weren't investigators," and I said, "Sure, like in real medieval world, there wasn't all this other kind of stuff, right? We've layered a lot of our modern thinking and procedures onto our fan father would think of the tassel in the game. Yep, you sometimes it's a pub or spaceship, sometimes it's an outpost camp, sometimes it's a tavern. Exactly. Like I don't mean that there has to be an inn. I'm just saying that there is a location. We tend to like in video gaming and even in our novelizations and things that there is a central location that gives us hints to the wider world, right? So it doesn't need to be a tavern. It could be a place where everyone meets on the docks, and then rumor is spread, and people um, uh, share their stories from out on the sea. We see this in crime stories where there's a at night a restaurant closes and it's only open to the mob bosses and the crime lords are all in there talking about different things, and that could be the tavern in your world. What's another one? In I ran I ran an extended Vampire the Masquerade game, and it took place. I lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We used our own town, our own city as our base of operations. And there is the art museum. And at night, the art museum was a place called Elysium. It was the neutral ground for vampires. And that was our tavern. The entire museum closed at night. The guards were had been affected by mental things for so long that they would close up and then guards wouldn't see the vampires that were in there. They were all hypnotized. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It was an excuse to have a centralized place, and the museum's different rooms would be places where people could get together and talk and gossip. But in the central area on the steps, they would it would be a quorum of all the vampires and hashing out different problems and things. And that was our tavern. So I'm not saying it has to be a place where they serve drinks. It's just a place where everyone gets together. It could be in a junkyard. It could be in a boiler room. It could be in an office setting or whatever. Wayne says actual towns or cities would exist, but most commonly we'd have villages. Yep. Yep. Most people never left them. Yeah. You guys. Mm, 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 mm. We could consider a large city an amusement park with all its little theme or cultural areas. Hell yeah, right? Like like I was mentioning, everything doesn't need to be a ride. What happens is in a theme park, we do have enrichment areas, enrichment centers. Sometimes they're even called that, where um, uh, Epcot Center, uh, Disney World. The Epcot Center is a perfect example of an enrichment center. There's literally a one section for the future and technology, and then you walk into the world and you get to walk around and go to different cultural regions. We're going to go to the Far East in Japan, and then we're going to go to the far north and Nordic areas and blah blah blah. I don't know if that exists in Epcot, but my point is They hire people from those real life locations to work in Central Florida to immerse people in those regions, and maybe yeah, the stream was starting to hobble there, but yeah, I mean, you know, moving around these regions, maybe in your world, this is a way to say, hey, here are the elves, and here are the fey creatures, and here are the dwarves, and here's the gnomish region, and things like that. So, yep, 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 yeah. Deadman says in real life in medieval times, visitors to a town were just put in a common room house with a dozen or so beds with a large fireplace in the middle of the room. And some people even opened up their homes back in the day. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Deadman. Yeah, just it was just a couple of beds, a fire. It was basically like shelter and sit here, and we might have food, maybe. Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, Mike says I like the mob ball restaurant after hours idea. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like I said. Maybe the word tavern has too much baggage attached to it because it's been around for 45 plus years, right? But the the concept still stands. Like I said in the beginning, it ain't just the it's not just the tavern, it's the campfire. It's the traveling along and stopping and meeting people on the road, and you're sitting around the campfire and you're having conversations with the caravan that's heading in the opposite direction, or the city park that has monuments to different heroes or events or giving thanks or for trauma or historical wars, and you're sitting in a city park, and maybe as you go off into various smaller places in the city park or little hidden areas, that's where you hash out like deals or make treaties or something. But in the central park, there's a fountain and maybe there's kids running around, but this might be neutral, a neutral region. Mike Marin says the recent Vampire the Masquerade Blood Hunt video game had the hub be an after hours church or office block or nightclub, yep, sewer system, all connected as a neutral ground hub for different clans. Exactly. And again, your let's talk far future. Maybe there's a starship that comes by periodically, and the starship has, you know, great things on it like chocolate and fresh fruits, and everyone in the space habitats like, yay, the starship is here with their entertainers and stuff, and then getting onto that starship and buying and trading different types, getting letters from family, getting rare items that are very difficult to get in deep space, and then of course rumors and wheeling and dealing. Maybe there's an assassin that's in disguise, or a spy that's sneaking onto the space habitat that took a ride with this traveling circus like starship, and that could be your tavern or something. But going on, let's move on to the other parts of our um, uh, let's move on to the other parts of our um, theme park idea here. The Yen King says if you're really worried about medieval realism, maybe your village is putting on a festival or holding the annual yeah, Sadie Hawkins dance where your players can learn about the world. Exactly. And of course, you can have different, this is where you can insert different kinds of maybe rules of behavior or economic things like people don't flashing gold might not be a welcome idea, or wearing of red might be seen as something that is not desired, and other things like that of that nature. And so that's why I like centralized, a central place where the players, they don't have to feel safe, but they may have a desire to want to come to the central location to then do something else. Yeah, and King says that's meant as a replacement for the tavern if you need a replacement. Yes, festivals, holidays, celebrations, um, a, um, a celebration of any type, weddings, funerals, honorifics, graduations, um, uh, 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 the the giving of awards for special services, things like that. Any kind of uh, day that comes along, like equinoxes, solstices, eclipses, those as well. Yeah, Marin says on theme park inspiration, you're often in a queue with random people with like waiting time and people to talk to. Yeah, standing in those long chicane lines that zigzag back and forth. Di- Disney World is it is a people moving crowd designed masterpiece in terms of how to corral tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people into smaller and ever smaller cues and chicanes where they try to not make you feel like you're in a line of 10,000 people. Instead, you're in these smaller groups. And so often you actually turn corners to realize, oh no, it actually goes on even more, but they hide so much of the lines. It's crazy how it's designed. It is brilliant, brilliant. And of course, you're given enrichment. You're given music, and you see things, and there's dance, and there's videos, and things of that nature before you even get on the ride. Along with the heat and the fans and the air conditioning, and you're always happy when you finally get out of the line. It's outside to get into the building, which also has more lines, but at least you're in air conditioning and stuff. Yeah, you M Squared says those are great catalysts to prompt people to talk to random people about quests and rumors. Especially like if you want to translate your setting into getting in lines with other people, that's where you see people on the road from heading towards or away from the place you want to go. So if you're in a theme park, you want to head towards the roller coasters, there are people over in the roller coaster area, and maybe they're excited to be there, and there are people talking, and there are people who waiting who never want to get on the roller coaster. And those are your NPCs that are like, yeah, we heard about the blue dragon in the accursed desert. And you're like, we're leaving because the the dragon storms are sweeping through the area, and the PCs are like, dragon storms? I've never heard of dragon storms, but okay, whatever. I mean, if that's what you think they are, and that kind of thing. Peace Porridge hot nursery rhyme comes from medieval times. Dead Man says first encountered in a book from the 1600s. That the oh okay. Dead Man, you brought up, and I wasn't sure how to bring this up as a theme. Um, Children's nursery rhymes used as a layer to teach about the safety of the world. Here we go with this. Sorry about the stream connectivities. There's not really much I can do about it. Hmm. No, yeah, I'm down to 720 and 30 frames per minute. Sorry, guys. But the idea that children, there are rhymes and commonalities amongst the way we describe the world in like poetry and rhyme and music, and you know usually they often, it becomes an earwig because the point is to create that you always remember. Don't touch the blue, it acts like glue, right? Like, and it was like, don't touch the blue, acts like glue. And then you see these really beautiful selling blue flowers with these great fronds, and someone's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Everyone's like, don't touch it, touch the blue, it acts like glue, right? um yeah, 1 2, they're coming for you. Nursery rhymes teach you how to fight Freddy Krueger. Yeah, yeah, thanks, Dead Man, thanks for bringing that up. The the peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold, peas porridge in the pot 9 days old is a thing. What else is another one? Um oh uh, Ashes, they all fall down was about like the Black Plague or something like that. And that's all. I'm pulling this off the top of my head. I don't know for certain, but a lot of the early American um, nursery rhymes were things to help young people survive so that they didn't die early in the world. Mike says maybe in your world locations require like train rides or crowded Leviathan transport like a ride. Yep. If the PCs want to travel, having to wait in line for transport could be a great DM tool for social prompts. I absolutely agree with you there, Em. Yeah, Ring Around the Rosies. Yep, that was another one. But the idea that the players, Eberron captured this, right? With the lightning rails, having to have transport from one place to another. Getting the classic sailing ship. PCs don't own a ship. They have to, barter to find a sailor to get them from, safety point A to dangerous point B, and maybe they're on a ship with many other people that they're having conversations with people who are heading in the same way, or maybe they're heading the same way, but you're like, we're not going to the deserted island. We're going to keep on heading south to the safer lands, whatever. But we have to travel past the bandit kingdoms to get there. Dojo Breaker says, I'm doing something like this with my Monster Hunter inspired campaign. Okay. With each biome being its own theme park for the players to master. And again, you don't literally, we're not saying you literally have to map out your world like a theme park with rides and things. What we're saying is that sections of your world, like different biomes, maybe like Dojo Breaker brought in this, like Dojo's mentioning, having like a monster hunter, maybe there's a monster um, cemetery where there's a bunch of dead monsters and their rib cages are like huge, like kaiju size or something, and that's a place where you just see vultures and ravens circling overhead because of all the death and decay and decomposition. Whereas in another region, maybe it's very safe for these monsters to I don't know, maybe it's very rocky, it's almost pillar-like, difficult to navigate. Even if you had a way to fly overhead, there's places for people to hide in little caves and overhangs and whatnot. And periodically, maybe the place floods each season, but when the flood waters go away, this is where the monsters, stay and play or something. But different biomes. Coastal region and aquatic. Maybe there's an aerial region that's very high up in the clouds and whatnot, or a jungle or swamp or something like that. Yeah, yeah, Wayne says, yeah, DBJ, that was a rhyme about the plague. It's the same one you mentioned. Yep. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies, ashes, they all fall down. I think that's how it goes. Yeah, Mila Jovovich, yeah, Jovovich, Jovovich, not Jojevich. But anyway, the something else that is included in theme parks are not just the places of air quotes danger and excitement, but also there's a place of respite, like a place where you can rest and relax. You have the restrooms, you have a place to buy some food and drink, and they're often, and also a place to buy t-shirts and um, I don't know, Christmas ornaments and mugs and baseball caps. And while you don't I personally don't like magic item shops, there may be places for players to acquire new things that are thematic to that location. So an aquatic region may have pearl divers, and hey, if you take this starfish and put it on your face, you can breathe underwater. And the PCs are like, I don't know if I want a suction cup thing putting its proboscis down my throat, but if it lets me breathe water, here we go, and slap on your face or something, right? Maybe there's giant, maybe you're able to train, or someone tells you, it warns the players in this coastal region, oh, those jellyfish, they're not dangerous. They have an air bubble inside of them, and if you swim down and go up inside the air bubble, it can hold up to 20 people, and the jellyfish will take you where you need to go, or something like that. And you learn, maybe there's ways to acquire different things in different areas. The lizard folk in the swamp show the players that they carry around giant leaves with some kind of regurgitated chewed root in these rolled up leaves, and the PCs are like, "What's that?" And they go, "Well, it's what we heal our wounds with." And the PCs are like, "Well, back home we've got like a golden fluid that we drink that heals our wounds." And the lizard folk are like, "So you drink your own urine?" Like, no, 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 it's not that golden. It's the other type of golden fluid, right? And they're like, "Well, for us, this is our healing salve or something." And you take their regurgitated chewed root and stick it on the wound and wrap the leaf around your, I don't know, arrow and pierced arm or something like that, and you learn and you're able to trade things. So in these different places, you might want to have, when they go off to a different gas giant or something, then maybe there's a habitat uh, floating in the gas giants, like a cloud city kind of place for the players to recover and get new supplies and find out about. There's wingsuits that you can use to fly around in the upper reaches of the gas giant or something that they would have never had access to had they not gone here. Oh man, when he says, "I absolutely hate magic shops," I'm kind of with you there. Tell me your game's over easy without telling me your game's over easy. Yeah, my issue with magic shops is like, well, why would, if the nobility are rich, why wouldn't they just buy out the magic shop and then arm themselves and their people with the magic that's being given away on their streets? Right? That's a pretty dangerous thing. Now, I'm not saying it wouldn't happen. I mean, heck, here in the States, we have, you know, written in our bylaws, we are able to sell lethal weaponry legally, and the government really can't do much about it. But again, if you have a pretty restrictive governing body, I wouldn't want there to be magic shops and people selling things unless they're extremely mundane, right? Like a bowl that, you know, once a day has porridge that's in it or something, or a magical staff that turns into a ladder, or or you know, a magical net that stretches itself out to capture as many fish as possible, or like something small like that, you know, a day globe that follows you around like dancing lights. I don't know. N King says, yes, train your players to think starfish on their face are safe. That's what Starro would want. Yeah, I was thinking of Starro about that. Like, yeah, open your mouth. Let me stick this inside of it. Ooh, that sounded worse than I intended it to be. But but yeah, okay, so by the way, let me share this out here. This is a long series of articles here at N World. I put the link in the doobly doo, and I'll copy and paste this into the stream. This is a 3-part article about D&D as amusement park theme. When was this produced? 2015. And this article, it what it does is it compares and contrasts the themes of the people who designed Disney World and comparing that to what we would like our players to experience in our games. So, for example, this starts out with, there are a lot of parallels between what makes for a satisfying experience at Walt Disney World and what makes for a satisfying role-playing game session. By the way, whatever your opinions about the current ownership of Walt Disney, I'm not concerned about that part. Just using this as an example, as a template for theme parks, because there's some drama with that politically and stuff like that. I guess socially as well. Both forays into imagination seek to create comprehensive fantasy experiences. While Disney has considerably more resources at its disposal, game masters can uniquely tailor their games to their players. And in this article, we look at the many immersive layers of the Disney World experience and how those same concepts can apply to tabletop role play. And here is the Transparency Now explains how Disney creates an illusion. Much of it revolves around Disney's effort to create the illusion for visitors that they have entered a perfect world which more closely conforms to their desires. It creates this perfect world in various ways. For example, it encourages visitors to see the park through the eyes of a child and defines itself as a place that brings dreams to life. But most essentially, it creates a fictionalized version of a perfect world by inviting guests to escape their containment in physical reality so they are no longer limited by time, distance, size, and physical laws. In various attractions, visitors seem to float through the human body and through DNA. They travel to the past and future and leave the Earth. On the thrill rides, they defy gravity, moving at speeds and in ways that seem to violate what common sense tells them should be possible. And what a great description for like a extra dimensional space, but also it's a way to tell the players, hey, listen, the like a Dark Sun, the rules in regular world don't apply here. There is no metal. Liquid is like Dune. Liquid is more valuable. I mean, uh, potable water is more valuable than gold. Things of that nature. And then, so anyway, this takes the articles and does a compare and contrast. And if we get to the bottom of this part one, you will see over to the left of the screen, D&D as amusement part one about theme. Part two is about acting out, and part three is ready, set, go. So it's kind of cool. And this is by Mike Talian Tresca, freelance game columnist, author, and communicator, and has a Patreon down here. So that's one example of this. I put that down in a doobly-doo. And let's see, and here on Reddit, there's a Reddit theme. This was 4 years ago, so a bit of time ago, just like the other article in N World. Theme park layouts and game level design, and this one is it, it does not devolve into screaming and yelling, but it does talk. But it goes into some detail and gives you some examples of like how it's designed and things like that. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Mm-mm-mm. Oh, let me go back here. Sorry about that. Let's go back to another imagery here. Mm-mm-mm. Wayne says, I can see the Aarakocra regurgitating healing potions. That makes sense to me. Open up. I know you just woke up from your nap in my nest, but the PCs are like, stop. Swallow it down. Anyway, I mean, but all jokes aside, that actually might be a real thing. But anyway, the yes, birds do regurgitate. I don't know if lizards ever do that. Excuse me. Also, in a sandbox, talking about sandboxing and theme parks and how this is an excellent combination of sandbox and railroad. A theme park has guide rails. So when you go into the theme park, there are walls. You can't leave it, right? Some players are consummately trying to um, scale the wall to escape the boundaries of the theme park, and they try to do that in a lot of games. And what I mean by that, they may try to do that physically, they may try to do that thematically. An example would be players who play Call of Cthulhu and try to beat the game by trying to make the most survivable character possible. And it's like, you're kind of missing the point in Call of Cthulhu to make a character that's ultra survivable, right? Like in Call of Cthulhu, you're not supposed to be combat ready, knowledgeable about everything, um, always having I'm an arcanist specialist, plus I have combat skills, plus I carry um, automatic weapons in my trunk because I always have them around because it makes sense for my character. Uh, Plus I have the highest willpower to resist sanity, plus, and it's like, well, are you really supposed to do that right in the game, or are you supposed to be a randomized victim in a world of horror and try to survive as long as you can? And you're kind of missing the point, you know. um it's like people playing I remember having this argument when we were playing a Vampire the Masquerade, and one person was just like, well, I want to play a vampire, but I want to be able to walk during the daylight, and I don't want to have any fear of fire, and blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, I get what you're saying, and I get that. You want your vampire to survive, but the whole point is you're struggling against your humanity. You're supposed to have weaknesses. You're supposed to be uh, essentially an addict of blood existing in a dark world. Like, it's not supposed to be superheroes, even though for the most part people turned it into that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes people playing games are just like, I want to be in Dark Sun, but I want to have a silvered longsword, and I want to be a warforged, so I don't have to eat or sleep. And I'm just like, you kind of missing it. Yeah, and the King says it's so funny when people try to get weapons in a Lovecraft game. You're not going to Uzi the King in yellow, dude. Yeah, and I've played with people like that. Like that kind of you're not going to win like that. Yeah, and listen, Call of Cthulhu is very noir. So yes, you can win. There are win conditions. You can stop the cultists from opening the portal. You can stop the the ghost from ravaging the neighborhood. You can stop. Yes, there are win conditions. My point being is that, like, the threat levels are designed to embattle mortals, and you're not supposed to be immortal in a game where you're just a mortal. Yeah, just Marco says if you're going to play a vampire, you should actually feel like you're playing a vampire, and that's my the this theme park idea is also telling your players, here's what you're going to expect. You may not like it, but here's what you're going to expect. As a matter of fact, um, if you guys do me the honor, I heard this mentioned on. Uh, I know I'm away from the microphone. Okay, the most brilliant thing I've ever heard. The and I had to write it down. This was on Knights of Last Call. Knights of first I have to give a shout out because I heard this the other day. Um, Knights of Last Call. Do, 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 do. Um, there we go. Let me share this here. This was on a recent. Let's go to videos. I think this was a recent live stream, and oh, Knights of Last Call. Anyway, and let me go back to the homepage, and then I heard this on Knights of Last Call. I was listening to a live stream, and this had to do with the the Knights of Last Call was talking about player responsibilities, about creating campaigns and things like that because that's what we were on that theme, and I really wanted to read this out, and I was like, oh, this almost needs to be a not rules of engagement. These almost need to be bylaws, right? Yeah, yeah. Mike is responding, says I don't want to say. Yeah, it's like I think it takes some, I don't want to say good, but experienced and nuanced TTRPG players to lean into that theme and not treat it like a video game. Yeah. Like, I ran a game in D&D Hell for some newbies this week. They, of course, avoided making deals with the devils because that would be foolish and dangerous, but a more nuanced player would do it. Exactly. Sometimes it's embracing it's the like you brought up, it's the going into the Feywild and drinking the wine that the Fey creatures give you, right? And I'm not saying that your players need to be foolish and stupid, but you're supposed, like, if you're in hell, you're supposed to try to make these bargains with evil, right? Like, it's the players that fold the arms. I'm not going to be fooled because I know I'm in a game, right? It's like, you know, I remember we had a player in our group that would love to do that stuff. We ended up encountering a succubus, and before the dice rolled, the guy was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna fall for whatever she has to say," and we were like, "You're not supposed to do that." He's like, dude, it's a succubus. Like my character would absolutely positively go for that, right? Like it's like I'm gonna fail my saving throw because that's my character. And I mean, we were joking about it, but it was a give and take, right? The dungeon master didn't take advantage, but it was this it's the idea that when the players engage in the dangerous thing, the dungeon master, or game master, storyteller, narrator, the give and take is great. Thanks for engaging in what I'm doing. Now I'm going to make sure that this is more dramatic. This is fun for you, not oh, because you drank the Fey wine. Now all of a sudden, like I'm going to take advantage of your character and kill your character. Marco says, I like to point to Ubisoft games. Early Splinter Cell games had gameplay that made you feel like a special agent with all sorts of gadgets. Later games basically just gave you guns so you felt like a generic soldier dude. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah, and King says some players are just really uncomfortable with being vulnerable in any way. And that's where you probably don't want to play games where vulnerability well I'm going to argue a little bit with that because I'm going to read something here with the vulnerability part because I think you make a good point about in real life I'm a pretty below average individual, right? I'm not tall or fast or smart or like I don't have like all my 3 to 18 stats are like 9 and below, right? So in a world where it's fantasy, we want to feel like we are better than ourselves. I think the problem with it is that how do I say this? Slaying a dragon with a sword is overcoming a difficulty, but learning how to walk is also from a person who is paralyzed is also overcoming a difficulty. What I mean is going from the range of limitation to superiority is um it's a ratio. It is a generalization of one thing to another from zero to hero. And going from zero to hero can encompass a lot of different things. And it doesn't mean that you are weaker because you were a zero at a certain point or with a certain skill or something. It just means you have space to become a hero. And I think some players don't realize that every action doesn't mean that you are always hero. Sometimes you're going to be zero so that it feels better when you are hero. Mike says it would come back to bite them, but it makes for a more interesting, less optimal story. Same with Call of Cthulhu. It takes player buy-in to be vulnerable, but it's different games for different players. Exactly. Yep. It's just different. And I think we're all on the same page, right? Some players, you don't ask them to play that. But anyway, this came from Nice Last Call. Here is here is the rules of conduct for players. Players should begin and end with the fiction. So let me read them all and then we'll go into some detail. Players should begin and end with the fiction. Um, make connections with every party member. Be bold, take risks, embrace setbacks and failures. Contribute and um, contribute and build upon others' contributions. No, contribute and build upon others' contributions. Give others a chance to shine. Pay attention, offer suggestions, and respond as if you are there. And I like the way he succinctly put that out there. I'm sure he's been doing this for a while. Yeah, Marco says, I think this is something that's good to bring up in session zero. Do you want to play a power fantasy or do you enjoy something more risky and dramatic? Hell's yes, that's definitely session zero. And as a matter of fact, we all know session zero doesn't need to be before one. Session zero comes between every session. Maybe the players are playing Call of Cthulhu and the player starts to like agrees and then realizes this isn't really for me. You know, there's a lot of that. And my issue with power fantasy is let's go back to vampire games, right? Players are a beginning player in Vampire and the other White Wolf games is exceedingly superior to any mortal being in the rest of the world. So on one hand, there is a power fantasy in it, in the sense that every character starts out hideously more powerful than any mortal being. You're also at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to other powerful individuals in the world. A beginning vampire can beat ass on 1 to 5 mortal people easily in classic vampire, the way the rules are set up. The the players are also at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to other vampires and werewolves and ghosts and magi and blah blah blah. Right, so they're at the bottom of the totem pole, which you know means that they have to thread this needle. And I think too often what happens is players, it's not that they don't want challenges. Sometimes we find a player that just never wants to fail, and I think that's an issue. I don't think feeling like you're a superhero is bad. I think failing and understanding that failure is the opposite part of success is my problem. We often see too many times that games are designed, they keep adding patches to make players so that they don't fail, and instead of, like in OSR gaming, oh, you can succeed if you're smart, but if you fail, well, deal with the consequences. And we have players who, despite the fact that we're using randomizers like dice, which is a randomizer, and that randomizer might mean that you fail in certain things. And some players feel like the game is broken or something's wrong with the game if they don't constantly succeed. And that's why I have an issue with games that are designed where success is more likely than failure, because then success becomes the norm and failure becomes less. And I that was what Professor Dungeon Master was like. The math in 5e means that on average, players are successful 65% of the time. And that's an average. You start to optimize your character and you're hitting 75, 80, 90% success rates on everything you do. So that failure becomes so unlikely that when it happens, everyone's like, the game is wrong, right? Yeah, Death Angel says players should not always succeed. And, sometimes maybe sessions here, you need to talk to your players like, hey, listen, you're there are going to be situations where you're never going to succeed. There are going to be creatures that you will not be able to defeat. There are going to be doors you can't open. Death Angel said it should only be 45 to 55% of the time. That is a math that happens in the OSR. That's 5th edition is far more successful than that. If you think about a base difficulty in Dungeons and Dragons is between DC of 10 to 12, that's like base, maybe even 15, and a starting character has a proficiency of +2, and then you add in their stat bonus, right? So which is usually +2 to a +4. So let's do an average of 3. So +2 to proficiency, +5, +3 stat bonus. That's a +5. So if they roll an average of 10, +5 is a 15. That means they beat everything up to a 14, which means on average they are succeeding 75% of the time. And that's an average. Most people who create characters in 5th edition are well above that, even as a beginning player. You double your proficiency bonus, you have advantage, you have a certain specialty or something, and it goes up from there. So that means even hard tasks, which are 15, on average, you have a 50-50 chance of winning it. And that's an unoptimized character. And then even on a 20, you still have a uh, my brain's not working. 25% chance? Something like that. Yeah, 25% chance to beat a DC 20, which your average human being only has a 5% chance of ever doing it. So, yeah, you're a superhero in many ways. So anyway, guys, we come to the end here. I want to thank you for being part of the show. Let's get back to our theme parks here. Yeah, just talking about theme park as setting design. Kind of cool, different, but I think thematically it does fit. So yeah, and then our theme parks talking. Let's combine this together about the expectations, what the players should expect in this world, or expect in this section of your world. hey guys, I know we're playing as dark fantasy, but hey, we're going to go off to this other place. It's going to be a little bit more fun, more jokey, a little more lighthearted. Just expect that, like a session zero. And the amusement park as a TTRPG design mechanism is kind of like that. Desune says it's also a matter of making sure the player understands why they failed. Challenges that have no visible solutions is going to put the claws of anxiety in players much more than arduous tasks that they can understand. Also, I'm a proponent of failure happening that's caused by a third party event, right? Like, I dislike the idea that a player failed because they were stupid rather than a player failing because of a third party event. So, an example would be players driving through city chasing bad guy to take them down because it's Future Friday, something modern. They're driving their souped up muscle car chasing the bad guy that's in a delivery truck. Player characters like, I've got a high driving rating. I could catch 75% of the time. I could turn it, I'm faster than them. I'm a better driver than them. I'm going to catch up with the delivery truck while they're shooting machine guns out the back. But it doesn't matter. They're the hero. All of a sudden they roll their driving roll and boom, they fail. PC's like, oh, F, this is stupid, right? But maybe they didn't fail because they're a bad driver. Maybe they failed because someone cut them off, or there was construction, or another vehicle, turned the corner and something fell off the back of the pickup truck and got in their way, or a police car, drove in front of the PC driving. Like, I like the idea that the perfect sniper who tries to kill the bad guy and misses on that rare chance, the bullet hits a bird. The victim suddenly bends down to tie their shoe. An aide taps the bad guy on the shoulder to draw their attention away, and it was just a fluke. That was something that they didn't do it because they were terrible at it. It's some third element happened to make them fail the thing, and it's like, oh, maybe I can try again. Yeah. The Yan King says, in a theme park, do we want to gate our different rides? Like, should they be allowed to ride the advanced coasters right off the bat? Now, that is another thing, right? Like, the you can't get on this ride unless you're a certain height kind of thing. And also, sometimes in our theme parks, the kiddie section's off to one side, the super hyper adult section might be off to the other side. So, you know, some theme parks are designed for you to encounter one, two, three other things before you get to the main roller coaster that's way in the back, right? That could be level gated, maybe, or in a real world, it could be gated off. Period, quarantined. No way to navigate there because of your starship. It costs too much fuel. It's been deleted out of the navigation systems. Magically, it's been shrouded, that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, why not? Why not? There, MK is. There's a reason we have the trope of run away, because you shouldn't expect to always be the biggest, baddest thing out there. Yeah, well, the rules teach you otherwise. Things shouldn't always be incremental for players. Sometimes their choices should just take them into areas way outside their capabilities. Also, just because the players encounter a powerful creature that can kill them in one hit doesn't mean that's a fight. The dragon doesn't need to roll initiative against the first level party. Maybe the dragon ignores them, or has a request of them, or you know has a display of power and leaves them to do their thing or whatever, right? Gents, how much cheesecake and coffee would it take to bribe DBJ into running us through a horrifically deadly amusement park? Cheesecake. Oh. Carbs. Yeah, I've been ketoing it, and carbs. Yeah, it must be 42 inches to ride this ride. Sorry, halflings. Death Angel Shadows. Running away should always be a viable option, and getting away isn't guaranteed. Yeah, but when they instituted opportunity attacks and that became a norm, they kind of reinforced like running away isn't really a good thing, which that's really weird to have something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you just want to take the super duper bullet train ride and crash it through the entire park. Hells yeah. Let me see if this shows up as 101 chaos. That's all it showed up as. Which actually makes sense, right? Hmm. I remember the first time I had a rider who had no lower torso on Spider-Man at Islands of Adventure. Wasn't sure what to do. Oh wow. Oh, because you had to strap them in, and if they don't have, wow. Yeah. Yeah. Talking about running away, I think using D&D as an example, you should get better mobility options the more damage you take, more speed, yeah, free disengage, yeah, yeah. Why the hell not? Or have a better way to use that inspiration, right? Like, hey, I've got my extra inspiration. Can I get the hell out of here? And you go, yeah, sure. You know? And let's end this off with this one last part. Oh my god, I love me some cheesecake. Yeah. Let's end it with that. Love me some cheesecake. So, guys, sorry about cutting it real short here. I really appreciate you guys. Next week, don't know what the theme is going to be. Doesn't matter. We're always here to talk openly. We always get devolved in squirrel. What? Oh, sorry. We always get distracted on this channel anyway. So, love the open conversations, the design, the ideas you could steal. Love all that kind of stuff. So, guys, have a great one. I will see thee later. Yeah, food. I love it. Love me some cheesecake. Hell yeah.